normal chats that are going on. And that you should also be doing the normal stuff that we do here. I'm just going to get that kind of promotional stuff out of the way very quickly. We've got the Discord server. We've got the normal chats that are going on there all throughout the week. So anytime you want to just chat it up, that's the best place to do that. If you are on YouTube, though, make sure you click on the notification bell for those email alerts to get up those notifications for things like this and anything else we go live for in the future. We've also got, of course, the YouTube channel membership, which if you click on the join button, it'll give you access to early content if you're on the $5 or up tier. Darkcast tier, of course, for the Darkcast tier going forward. And Pick Poison tier, the greatest thing that's out there where you can make sure that we do specific content that you would like to see. It's all the same as the Patreon. So, if you'd rather do Patreon, same thing there. The little thanks button's a great way to help us out here, just the same as the live chat for the super chat side of it. And if you want merchandise, Redbubble and TeePublic is where you can pick that up. And that is basically all I'm going to promote right now because I don't really want to get super deep into that. We will talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, let's start getting into Bad Blood. Now, not a ton of matches to break down, only 5 that happened on here. And then one segment that was about as long as what a match would be, but it's not technically a match. But what's this? Let me read real quick what Peter's saying. I was marked up since day one. Yeah, very much so. Not a fan of the red cage. I agree with you on that front. I never liked that red cage for the Hell in a Cell. I always thought that looked a little bit too gimmicky and stupid and fake and not as threatening looking. So back to the real, just normal metal grate thing. That's the proper Hell in a Cell. I think it could look kind of cool if it was a black one, but that's a different story. So I'm going to run down everything that happened here for anybody that might have missed the card, anybody that wants a little refresher and all. My opinion, generally speaking, if you just want the very quick response of what I feel for this, maybe I shouldn't say that, maybe people click off of it, but I thought this was a good pay-per-view. This is not going to go down in history as like the greatest event of all time or anything, but for what is essentially what we keep calling In Your House Bad Blood, the way that it was originally 27 years ago, I think that this was a very solid In Your House pay-per-view. This was an event where, technically speaking, nothing happened in the sense that no titles changed hands, no big changes going forward were really established other than some few moments here and there. So each match had, well, all but one match, they had something going on for it that I feel was like a solid takeaway. And then, one of the other ones, not necessarily the case, but then they followed it up with another segment that ended up having a different kind of announcement. So, yeah, my like overall thoughts on this was good. Wasn't great. I keep using the phrase solid. I don't know when I started to do that, but it was like, it's a solid match or something. So, it was a solid pay-per-view. So, starting things off, the pre-show, the countdown that wasn't announced ahead of time, and then they decided that it was going to end up happening. A complete waste of an hour as per usual. It's just, people talking about stuff and breaking down the card and all. So if you missed that, you didn't miss a single thing. They started off the show with some typical video package type material, the Metro Boomin stuff and all. They showed that Goldberg was in attendance. That actually came into a different segment later on in the night. But about 15 minutes or so before we finally got into the first match, which was the Hell in a Cell match. So for anybody that was making the argument that Hell in a Cell should be the main event for this, you got the complete opposite of that. They just went with setting up the Hell in a Cell in advance. And I don't really blame them for that 100%. I know that that's the hardest thing that you can set up, other than, I think, I'm trying to fix my hair here. I think it's harder for them to set up Elimination Chamber and then it's Hell in a Cell, if I remember correctly, from people talking about like setting up the ring stuff. Now War Games, that's probably a lot harder actually. But they went with this, and sometimes it's good to start off with a bang too. So that actually ended up being a real benefit, I think, because CM Punk beats Drew McIntyre in what I would consider to be the best match of the night. They had a lot of good moments here that were standout moments in the match itself, but not standout moments in Hell in a Cell history, I would say. They didn't get any kind of segments where they spot where they get thrown off the Hell in a Cell or off the side of it or anything. Didn't break out at all in that. They just kept it all in the ring. I mean, ring adjacent as well. But at table spots, they had a wrench, toolbox brought into play. The end of the match actually took place with McIntyre pouring a bag of beads. They would normally do for like a bracelet, like the whole Punk bracelet that's been a big part of this feud. And that was first incorporated as just kind of like a little humiliation spot, and then it became something that Punk used against McIntyre. He shoved some of the beads in his mouth so that way McIntyre could like drop him, and then he could reverse and get a GTS in. I don't remember if it was the second or the third or maybe the fourth GTS or so, but it was definitely more than one that he had hit. So that ended up being what put McIntyre out. And they sold this really well afterward with this idea of Punk barely being able to get to the back and he needed medical attention, and they had to have medical staff give him some oxygen, and they did the same a little bit for McIntyre, but they didn't really show as much of that. So, the running theme here is supposed to be that they beat the living hell out of each other to the point that they nearly, passed out and stuff. And I think if you missed this, this is definitely a match that's worth going back and checking out. If you are more along the lines of you only want to see the moments that are like the top in Hell in a Cell history, I don't know if any of that's going to really end up being on your list, but again, they did a top 5 thing during the countdown, and the top 5 moments, there was like, number 4, I think I remember, if I remember correctly, it was like Sasha Banks getting powerbombed by Charlotte onto the commentary table, and that's the regular spot they do all the time. It had nothing to do with Hell in a Cell. So that was a weird list. They didn't even have the Rikishi spot, they didn't have the Shawn Michaels spots, or the Shane McMahon ones, or the Kevin Owens one, or anything. I don't know who picked that top 5. But the stuff that happened here, in a bubble in and of itself, I think this was a really good match. So going forward, what do they do? CM Punk beats McIntyre in a pretty definitive fashion. I think they are done at this point. I don't know if they're going to have McIntyre take some time off, or if they're going to have them just sort of not interact, because it's kind of hard to justify why would they still be on the same roster if these two have that much bad blood between them, hence the pay-per-view. Then how could they really share a locker room, or how could they really even like bump into each other in the hallways without wanting to kill each other and all? But they are going to address that, I guess, on Monday Night Raw, or maybe after the fact, or they won it all, and we're just supposed to assume that that's perfectly fine. And maybe they'll even go with an idea about like McIntyre having some begrudging respect for him, and they kind of could play into that based off of the way that they ended this, and McIntyre sort of standing up on his own better than Punk and kind of looking on to him. I don't know if the look was supposed to be like, oh, I'm so mad that you won the match, or if it's, well, now I respect you, or well, now it's over. They can play into it a lot of different ways. Either McIntyre was playing it like subtle, or he was really misconstruing what he was supposed to be projecting, and I didn't interpret it the wrong way if that's the case. But we'll see. I think it is time for this feud to end, though. And I would have thought that this was setting up something for Crown Jewel. We'll talk about that a little bit later, too. So they spent a lot of time tonight on showing that there were different people in the crowd, and I guess giving something just like an extra little boost for this. But the next group they had shown were Jacqueline, which I don't remember last time she's been in WWE, Lillian Garcia, and Booker T. At this point, I didn't get to hear Trick Williams' theme. And then they showed people backstage partying because Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and then Naomi as well tagged along as one of the hosts. They were showing that Mickie James was there, Diamond Dallas Page, X-Pac, Arn Anderson. A little bit later on in the night, they had Tully Blanchard, and then they had some other people. Like, honestly, I don't know who the hell these people are. I know barely of Metro Boomin, and I think it's mostly from a song that I heard on a lot of TikTok videos. So, when you say Lil Baby was there and Quavo, yeah, I don't know. I'm not tapped into celebrity culture in general, let alone musical celebrity culture. I'm more on the actor side of it. And then, rappers, I couldn't name more than like the major, Dr. Dre, Eminem types and stuff. So they showed them throughout the night. Scott Steiner was also there too. And we'll come back to that again. But the second match of the night, let me read what some of these messages are from Peter in the chat right here. If you say Black Helmet, KJ just said that earlier today. It's hard for titles to change hands when they're not aligned. They announced pre-show on SmackDown, we did have one championship on the line here that I thought had a chance to change hands. I actually thought there could have been two. But the WWE Women's Championship match between Nia Jax and Bayley, admittedly, was a better match than I expected that it would be. I've been talking for a while about how I was not interested in that, and I still don't think that it was particularly amazing or anything, but they did a solid performance. And my issue with it is in what this ultimately ended up becoming, which is they had an okay match, and Bayley almost won a couple times, and I almost retained a couple times, and they kind of kept that story going. And referee Jessica Carr takes a bump, and throughout this whole mix, Tiffany Stratton comes down, and she's got her Money in the Bank briefcase ready to go. She does something to Bayley, I forget what she does. And by the time Jessica Carr regains her composure and all, the typical rule of thumb, referees can get knocked out with like a stiff breeze and be out for 20 minutes if they need to be. And then other times they can get, a chair shot to the head and within a quick little like, hey, type of thing, you can just wake them up. But by the time that they were getting ready to ring the bell, for anybody that remembers, Money in the Bank is not an official cash in unless the bell rings. Every other time before that, as long as the bell hasn't rang, it's still in play. So bell didn't ring, Tiffany Stratton's ready to go, Jessica Carr's getting that all situated, and Nia does like an Undertaker setup kind of thing, and she catches her red-handed. So instead, and this is where I think this all fell apart, Stratton just acts like, oh no, I wasn't going to cash in, and walks away, and eventually she throws the briefcase at Bayley, and Jessica Carr's not paying attention, so it leads to a distraction, and Nia Jax is able to get the pin. So Nia leaves on her own, mad at Tiffany Stratton. Money in the Bank is still out there, she can still cash in at any time, and it just means that Nia retains, which I didn't really like that outcome, because to me, why did we need to see another Bayley match here? We could have gotten something different. And yeah, the match itself was fine, but it's just a stall tactic, and I'm going to bring this up again about the idea of stalling. I don't know if right now is the best time that they should stall a lot of things, and it does look like they're stalling a lot. This championship is also going to factor into Crown Jewel, and I guess I'll just skip to that segment. So, Damian Priest and Finn Balor, they had their match after this. I don't have anything to say about it, to be perfectly honest. It was a fine enough match. I forget what I wrote down on the one thing. Once marketmo.com, I wrote something like, for a mid-event, mid-card filler match that should have been a main event on Monday Night Raw, this was a good match. Nothing happened in it. The other members of the Judgment Day came out, they interfered, it didn't work, Damian Priest wins. Okay, so I'm kind of hoping that story is done as well, but there is a good chance that they end up deciding to just drag this on a little bit longer too, maybe do some kind of gimmick match or so. If they do, I hope it ends on Raw as opposed to at Crown Jewel, because I don't know at this point if they've got the legs to go 4 weeks until Crown Jewel. Maybe they do 4 more weeks. It's not the hardest thing to book 4 more weeks worth of television, well, 4 more segments of them for television, but they would need a gimmick for sure. Like some kind of, they just did Last Man Standing, so they can't do that. Like some kind of a street fight-ish thing. They would need to establish that over the next 4 weeks. And that could come as simply as, Balor is attacking Damian Priest and he attacks him with chains. And then it becomes, okay, well now next